Good morning, stampers and crafters. Welcome to another episode of Technique Tuesday. I believe we are on episode 33. Wow. Today's technique is a really simple and fun one. If you are a scrapbooker, you may already know this one, and it has to do with stamping on photos. And what I'm going to show you today is creating silhouettes with your stamps and stamping them onto photos. It's fast, it's simple, it's fun. I will, in the description, I will have everything I use today. I will also put some of these photos that I have found on the internet. Now, if you don't have your own photos or anything like that that you want to stamp on, you can just Google like landscape photos or ocean scenes or something like that. Just Google landscape images, and it'll pop up a bunch of photos in which you are able to print. If the photos have copyrights on them, they will be marked. So, but you can pretty much find a lot of photos there. If you're a scrapbooker, you can stamp greetings onto your own photos and put them in your scrapbooking. I don't personally do scrapbooking. I think I've done maybe one scrapbook and I wasn't very good at it. So what I did is I took photos and I turned them into cards. So we're going to make a couple of these today. I've had a lot of requests for this one, and I really enjoy it. I'm going to teach you how to do these columns of light on here and use your images. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump right in. And I'm going to start with this one. And what you'll need is photos. And you will also need, now I have found there are several inks that will stamp on photos. The trick is to make sure that your ink dries completely. So I have tried Memento, seems to work fine. I've also tried VersaFine. This one I like. I almost prefer this one because it's a pigment ink, but it stays wetter longer, which gives you a really nice stamped image. Now I have used StazOn. StazOn is perfect for this technique, but what I did find is when I use StazOn and you stamp it onto a glossy cardstock. Now you can print these images on matte if you want to. You can even print them onto paper and do this if you would like, onto cardstock. Personally, I'm just doing it on regular HP or photo paper that I use in my printer, and so that's just what I'm using. And when I used StazOn, it seemed like when I stamped the image it stuck and it kind of peeled up part of the ink. So you would definitely need, if you're going to use StazOn, I would suggest that you use your stamp positioning tool and hold the photo down really well with your magnets, because when you pick it up, like I said, it kind of sticks, so it might move your image a little. And so stamping it twice might be a little difficult to line it up, is what I found. But I did find these other inks work fine, and that's what we'll use today. I will probably just use the VersaFine. I like the way it stamps. I use Memento on almost everything, so I did find this one works also. And I have a Memento pen, and that's what I will use to color things in. If you don't have a Memento pen, you can also use your micron markers. These come in different tip sizes. You can get them right at the craft store. These work. And I also found, which a lot of people have right in their home, is a Sharpie marker. Sharpie markers are permanent. This is a fine tip one. It works great for this also. So those are just some of the things you're going to need. So let me set these aside. And let's start with this one. I really enjoyed doing this one. And the only other thing you'll need with this one is a Whisper White stamp pad. I'll have a link to that in the description. And a dauber. You can also use a cotton ball if you don't have a sponge dauber. So let's go ahead and jump in on that one. Let me find the photo. Now, in the description on the blog, like I said, I will put these photos, and feel free to print them off of my blog. You're welcome to it. Now, these photos print in 4x6, so I will be trimming them down. So let's find our cloud. Now, here is the one that we're going to use to do this card. And it's just simply a cloud photo. Now, you can do this, you can make this by stamping and doing your own cloud background if you want, and it'll work for that too. So let's get started. So I'm going to bring in my trimmer. Oops, wrong one. Squirrel. Okay, let's bring in my trimmer here. And I've already got it 4, and I'm going to do 5 1/4. And I think I'm going to trim off this end so that I have this beautiful cloud here. So I'm going to trim it to 5 1/4. And that way I can mat my image. And for this one, you could use any pine tree image you have. What I'm going to use for this one is, I believe it's retired, but it's called Wonderland. And it's got these beautiful little pine trees in there. If you don't have this one, you can also use, I think almost everybody's got Lovely as a Tree. You can use Lovely as a Tree. You can use any trees on this you would like. I am personally going to use Wonderland. And I'm also going to use, in the My Meadow set, it's got this tree right here. Because you know how forests have some trees that, you know, aren't bloomed. So I'm just going to put a couple of those in there. So those are the sets we need. So let's start with our pine trees. And since I'm using the VersaFine, I don't really need to use my stamp machine, which it's a rare day when you see me not use my Stamparatus. But we're just going to put this on a block. Now, pick a part of your image. Now, if you are going to do landscape, then pick a central spot in which you're looking up at your trees. So you want it to look like you're looking up into the trees at this. So what I'm going to do is, mine is going to go in portrait form. And I'm going to pick one spot of this in which I want my trees to aim. And I think I'll just probably pick, let's go by, see this little spot right here? I'm just going to pick that little spot right there, and we'll start. So let's get our ink ready. I'm going to ink this up real well. Let me get a scrap paper so I don't make a big mess here. These Stamparatus little sheets work so wonderful. I love that they're small and easy to use. So I'm just going to lay that under there. I'm going to ink this up real well with our ink. And remember our little spot here. So let's do our first tree. We're going to go a little ways down from it. Let's put them right there. And then hold your paper and lift it. You'll see that it sticks just a little bit. But that's okay. It's stamped really well. Now I'm going to keep going around. I'm going to leave a little space and point it at my spot. Stamp it again. Now I have a little spot where the ink didn't go real well there, but that's okay. I'm going to show you how to fix those. Like I said, stamping on glossy cardstock, your ink and your stamp is going to stick to it just a little bit. So let's move around our image here. Let's put one more over here, pointing at our spot. Now you could go all the way around if you wanted to, but I wanted to leave a spot where we can put our greeting. Now that's going to be wet, so be careful not to stick your finger in it. It takes it a little bit longer to dry because it is on a glossy. Hopefully I didn't just put my head in the camera, sorry. Let's put another little one right about there. So we're still pointing to our spot. I'm going to do one more about right there. And see, it looks like you're staring up into the trees. Okay, I'm not going to wipe that off. Well, I am going to wipe that off. Let me grab my... Because we can always fill in our spots. So let's wipe this off real quick and move to our... So now we're going to grab our other tree here, which is in the My Meadow set. And even though it's a tree, we can make it look like a pine tree. And I'll show you how to do that. So let's put our tree on our block here. Ink it up real nice. I kind of like the way photopolymer stamps on it a little bit better. So let's put one here. We'll put another one about right there. Now be careful not to rock it too much because it will, since this is a slick surface, it will shift the stamp. So kind of stamp straight down and then back up, okay? I think I want to add another one over here. There we go. Okay, I think we're pretty filled in there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take just the tip of my tree here. And kind of fill in this little spot here. Any little spots you want to fill in, you can. There we go. So now we want that to dry really well before we start our next step. So let me take, remember the spot where if it doesn't stamp right, take your marker and just fill it in. And these tree trunks on this one are kind of not solid, so I'm just going to take my marker and fill them in solid a little bit, just real lightly. Now this is wet, so be careful not to get your finger in it. You know me, I'm always covered in ink, so I'm used to doing it. So all I'm doing is filling in the trunks of the trees a little bit. And then I'm going to take my smaller marker, and where these tree trunks on the little blank tree, I'm just going to add a few branches here. Oops, I think my marker quit. There it goes. So I'm just going to fill in those branches just a little bit. Kind of makes it look a little more like a pine tree. Okay, now before I move on, I'm going to lightly hit this with our heat tool. You don't have to be real close to it. Just kind of dry your ink real well. From a distance. Try to stay away from it a little bit. Not heat your photo paper too much. You heat your photo paper too much, it can bubble. Especially the glossy stock. Make sure that's nice and dry. Okay. I'm going to lightly touch an area and make sure we're dry. Okay, there we go. Now, what we want to do is we're going to bring in our Whisper White and our little dauber. And we need... What did I do with that? Okay. And just take a couple pieces of scrap paper. Make sure your Whisper White is nice and inked up. Now we want to start from, remember our focal point right here, this little point. So let's start from there. And we're going to make a little bit of a V right there. We're going to create the light columns. So there's our V. Just kind of hold that in place. Ink up your dauber and just lightly daub on your paper. Now to give it an extra accent, I'm kind of adding a little more to one side of my light ray. So let's just go down and it fades out toward the bottom. See there? You have your light ray. And then we're going to move over a little bit. We're going to still stay right off our point there. And we'll come down, hold it in place. Now I'm just dabbing it on there. Now your white's going to stay wet, so again, be careful with, putting your arm or hand into it. And I'm putting a little more white on one side of it and a little more up toward the cloud. And then it fades down. Okay, and you just keep moving it around like that. Put our next one about right like our V. Oops, moved it a little. Look at that. Isn't that neat? It's so cool looking. I'll move off to the side over here a little. Now it doesn't have to be really dark. You're trying to give, you know, just a perspective of light. We'll move off to our other side here. Let's put one more in there. Okay. So now I want to take, and I want to, see how you have kind of a little harsh where your points are going together? Just lightly dab and blend that in a little. Just, you don't have to add a lot of ink to your dauber. Just kind of blend out the top of those rays. I want to make this ray here just a little more bold, so I'm going to line my paper back up. Add just a little more. There we go. Now we're going to blend that top, and you're just dabbing. Don't rub it, because it'll actually lift off in areas if you do that. So just dab your dauber. Kind of blend in that center section. You can even go along some of those harsh lines if you want. Kind of just dab along them and let it. Just kind of blending in some of that light. It's just subtle. And there you go, look at that. Now, let's step it up a little bit. And in the same My Meadow set that we got the tree from are these 3 birds. So let's grab those little guys. And we're just going to use our same ink. We'll just use the same ink, is fine. And I want to put them so they're kind of circling at the top of the trees there. Let's just put them about... Oops, I got ink on my block and I didn't want to mess up here. So let's put our birds about... Where do we want to put them? Let's put them about right there. Now be real careful stamping these little guys, because they will smear if you move your block. And then for our greeting, let's see, what can we use for our greeting? Let's see what I got for greetings over here. This is an set called Flourishing Phrases, and it's got a lot of really nice sentiments in it. And I don't have many sympathy cards, so I think I'm going to use sympathy on this one. Sadly, it's not one of the type of cards nobody likes to make a sympathy card. I mean, it's not me, but you kind of need them sometimes. So let me put my birds back here. Now for this greeting, I will bring in my Stamparatus. Now be careful that white. Let's hit this with the dryer a little bit. Because our whisper white is a pigment kind of crafting, so it tends to stay wet a little longer and even more so on this glossy cardstock. So let's put our greeting about right there. Let's see if I can get this, make sure I can get this straight. Well, hopefully that's it. We'll see. But I want to be able to re-stamp it if I have to, so that's why I'm using the stamp positioning tool. We'll ink that up. See how it kind of sticks? See it pulling up the paper a little bit? Oh, and it stamped perfectly, so we did it first time. Nice. So we will set that aside to dry. And all I did for mounting that is I did a real fine Night of Navy matte on it. And so I just did a real thin Night of Navy matte, which would have been, I'll have the measurements in the description, but it's just a real thin matte on, and then put it on regular whisper white, kind of keep it simple. So that's how we do that one with the light rays. And you know, this one I did more of a kind of a, it could be a get well. And here's the original. So I'll set that aside so you can mount that any way you would like. Now, I want to show you how to do, to turn your stamps. Now, there are stamps, we do have silhouette stamps. Okay, there's several stamps that are silhouettes. These work great on stamping on photos. But if you don't have those, you can turn any image into a silhouette. So let's see what we've got. Let's do, I've got a pathway here. I've got a beach. I've got this little field. Now on this image, when I pulled it off the internet, I'm not sure what that is right there, but it's okay because you're going to be trimming off your photo anyway. So let's do this one, and let's do our meerkats. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, and now remember it's already 4 inches, so I want to trim it to 5 1/4. So let's trim that off. Well, let's see. I think what I want to do, let's trim off the tree side. That way we have plenty of room for our image. So let's grab our meerkats. They're absolutely adorable. Look at these little guys. And meerkats, I think they even come from Africa. And this kind of looks like an African sunset to me. So let's get our little meerkats out. We'll bring in our stamp machine. Let's line them up on the bottom here. Right along the edge of the bottom. Because we'll color in this bottom a little to make it look more like it's in the foreground. them up. And I want to make sure my magnets are on there well. I'm going to go ahead and still use the VersaFine. VersaFine is also one of those inks, if you didn't know it, that when you stamp it, you can also add embossing powder to it. It works like Versamark. It's just colored. So you could actually add clear embossing powder to this if you wanted to. Just be careful if you're going to emboss on glossy stock to keep your heat gun moving. It could bubble the photo paper. I'll stamp those little guys down. Now, it's not a really solid image, which is fine. If you were just going to stamp it without filling them in, you're already lined up on your machine and you could restamp it again. So let me set this aside. And now I'm just going to take my Memento pen, or you could use your Sharpie, or you could use your Micron markers. And we're just going to color these little guys in, make them solid. So I'm going to go along the bottom here, right along the edge of the bottom of this paper, and kind of add just some little, make it look like grass, right in the foreground. You have a little bit on the photo, but if you darken it up, it's going to bring it more to the foreground and put the sunset in the back. So now we'll just color these little guys in. I'll speed up the video here for you. And there you go. See, they're all colored in. And then just kind of bring your ground up to them. And it'll make your ground look more like it's in the foreground. Touch up any little light spots. There you go. You have your little silhouette meerkats. You can put absolutely any greeting right there. And then as it dries, you can just touch up any areas with your marker. And there you go. Aren't they adorable? How simple is that? So that is actually photo stamping and how you create silhouettes. So like I said, I will give you some photos. Now with this photo, what I did is I added these two little girls, and they come from the Beautiful Moment stamp. I stamped them on there, colored them in, added a greeting right to the bottom. I did do a black mat on this one and used Pacific Point to pull the blues out of the sky for that one. This one, pretty much my favorite. And then on this same photo that we did the meerkats, I did a smaller print and just used this set is the horses from Let It Ride. How perfect is that? Okay. On this one, I used, let me find it here. I used this lady, and after you stamp her, take this little piece here and stamp it a few times in the foreground. After you color her in, just stamp it a few times in the foreground, and that'll bring her to the foreground using the forest as the background. And stamped the greeting in the top corner. This one, I didn't do a matte. I simply attached it to crushed curry, which brought in the yellows of the field. So that is photo stamping. How simple is that? I absolutely love it. So I will include these photos for you. We have a beach. I'll do this walkway, which I think would look perfect with this lady right here. Stamp her right on this walkway here. Now you can do this with any photos. You can stamp greetings on your own photos and use them for scrapbooking or to put on a card. It's a fun, simple technique, and I hope you enjoy it and you have a really good time trying it. This one here has, of course, been the all-time favorite on how to do light columns. And there you go. That's our technique for today. I hope you enjoyed it and you have a very happy stampin' day. Bye-bye now.